You don't even know what the average American is paying. You don't know what we paid in terms of the missiles that hit the Iranian school. You don't know what we're paying in terms of gas. You don't know what we're paying in terms of food. Your 25 billion number is totally off. It's the incompetence.
2 months. It took 2 months for Pete Hegseth to sit in front of a congressional committee and answer questions about the illegal war he is running in Iran. 2 months. And in those 2 months, we launched military strikes in Iran. We imposed a naval blockade on the Strait of Hormuz. We fired the Army Chief of Staff, the Secretary of the Navy, a rotating cast of generals whose departures have never been explained. We're asking Congress for $1.5 trillion defense budget, which is 50% increase. That's the largest in Pentagon history. And we're now hitting the 60-day mark under the War Powers Resolution. That resolution requires Congress to sign off on or withdraw this week. And now was Hegseth's first public questioning from lawmakers, whose job is to provide oversight of a war that has officially now cost us $25 billion, according to Hegseth. And he walked in there, into this budget hearing technically, opened his mouth, and called congressional Democrats and some Republicans reckless, feckless, and defeatist. In his opening statement, I see that he hasn't cut away from poetry. And this was all before a single question was asked. That's the tone that Hegseth chose to set with the people who control his budget, the people who could decide whether or not this illegal war continues to get funded. Reckless, feckless, and defeatist. Good morning to you, Pete. Bear claw anyone? And look, that greeting he received back was just as chilly, thankfully. Representative Garamendi, he said directly to Hegseth, Secretary Hegseth, you have been lying to the American public about this war from day one, and so has the president. Hegseth gave a totally reasonable answer. Who are you cheering for? That's the type of answer you give when you don't have an answer. Seth Moulton, who actually served in combat, said, do you think Congress was smart or feckless when it failed to ask tough questions of the Bush administration and gave them a blank check for Iraq, which Hegseth, by the way, has been on record publicly criticizing our actions in Iraq and other Middle Eastern wars, said that this was a false comparison. He served in Iraq. He knows that it's not a false comparison. He just couldn't say so because Daddy Trump would spank him, just like he did to Kristi Noem and Pam Bondi. Representative Adam Smith, Iran's nuclear program is exactly what it was before this war started. The mission, as it has been since day one, has been described as nuclear facilities, obliterated. That's what Hegseth has said since day one. But it's also been regime change, or the Navy, or the Strait of Hormuz, or oil. I mean, the goal here has changed so many times. The Democrats, all they had to do was read the list of reasons back at Hegseth. And then they got to the firings. Hegseth has fired without any public explanation the Army Chief of Staff, the Secretary of the Navy, multiple generals, blocking promotions for 4 colonels, 2 of them women, 2 of them black, during an active war. The Pentagon even said that this was unprecedented. And Hegseth said he's not going to dispute that. What? Still didn't answer the question about why, though. And by the way, just to be clear, this was brought up too, the $1.5 trillion budget request doesn't include war spending. That is a separate ask that Hegseth hasn't officially made yet. So this proposed budget is a $1.5 trillion Pentagon budget on top of a $25 billion war tab and a coming request that could be another 200 or so billion on top. And Pete Hegseth's answer, when asked about the cost of this war, asked about what the cost is to the American people, he asked, what would the cost of an Iranian nuclear bomb be?
Do you know how much it will cost Americans in terms of their increased cost in gas and food over the next year because of the Iran war?
I would simply ask you what the cost is of an Iranian nuclear bomb.
I'm going to give you that
I
opportunity.
would simply ask you what the.
Yeah,
you're
but
playing gotcha
sir,
questions
sir,
about
no, it's
domestic
not.
things. I'm not.
You're saying it's a gotcha question to ask what it's going to be in terms of the increased
Why
cost
won't
of
you
gas
answer what
and
it
food?
costs to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear
I
bomb?
give you that, sir. But let me.
What
if you
would
could
it
just
cost?
ask my
What would you
question.
pay to ensure Iran doesn't
But
get a nuclear
can you-
bomb?
Do you?
What would
sir,
you pay?
I reclaim my time. Do you not know? You had no one do the analysis of what the increased cost of gas and food on the American people are going to be?
What is the cost of
Let me
Iran
give you
holding
the
that
number.
straight at
Let me
issue
give
with
you the
nuclear
number.
weapons?
It's $631 billion.
That's a nuclear bomb that this administration has already said Iran couldn't produce. I'll tell you what this looked like. It looked like a man who spent 2 months avoiding accountability, sitting in a room where accountability is the only point. And he decided that the best strategy, after seeing what happened to Pam Bondi, was be obnoxious and hope that the cameras would cut away and that we'd ignore it. Cameras didn't cut away. Pam Bondi learned this the hard way. So now we have to ask, will Pete Hegseth? I want to know what you think. Will Pete Hegseth get fired soon? Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think.